welcome back to Benson Team's Beyond the Block, your podcast on all things real estate, from tips for agents to tips for buyers and sellers and beyond. My name is Brad, your host, and I'm here again with Scott Benson. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
That's awesome.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Today, we're going to talk about three topics again. First is going to be kind of spending habits as a realtor. Then we're going to talk about best tips for setting up your home for selling. And then we're also going to talk about, is using a realtor truly an advantage?
Cool. You know what's funny about your first topic there, spending habits as a realtor? I think where you're going to go with that is like, what are proper spending habits in real estate, advertising dollars, etc. But what I thought you were saying at the beginning was like, how do realtors spend money in general? And I was laughing in my head because realtors stereotypically are some of the worst managers of money in any industry across the board, right? So the old adage is like, you sell that first house and you go buy a Mercedes. Like that's kind of the old adage of how realtors actually personally manage money.
Okay.
But I'm glad we're not going there. There's lots of great managers of money in real estate, but there's certainly a stereotype around this. So it's kind of funny how I first took it. But anyways, I digress.
Because that's interesting too, because just when I think of like the structure in terms of like pay for realtors, it's very like lump sum, and then you kind of have a period.
Feast or famine, right?
Exactly. So
yeah, 100% commission sales for any of the audience that has a spouse or a friend or a brother that does 100% commission sales.
Yep.
It is feast or famine, and the old adage, you kind of kill what you eat. And I would say, real estate is, at least real estate sales is very unique in that way. And so we are in a stage right now where there's not as many houses selling. There's already a shortage of inventory for buyers, so that means there's a shortage of inventory for realtors. So it's an interesting time actually.
Yeah, for sure. My first question here is kind of a little general, but how do successful realtors budget for lead generation? Be a little specific.
Yeah, so I believe this is a Keller Williams adage, and I like to give credit where credit is due. But Keller Williams says lead with revenue, and I think that that's very wise. So I think that if a business model is any business model, personally, I would say is basically planning with spending, that's probably not a great business model, because you want to try to lead with revenue and then fix your spending underneath the revenue. So don't plan on trying to go spend $100,000 to make $200,000 in real estate. Go make $100,000 and maybe spend $25,000 once you've actually made the 100. That would be my suggestion up front. I'm sure you'll flush that out.
Yeah. And then another question would kind of be more to your business and entrepreneur side, and is what percentage, but this could also go for realtors as well, but what percentage of earnings should be reinvested into the business, whether it's like advertising or you mentioned lead generation?
Yeah, there's seasons where 100% of the earnings should be reinvested into the business, and I think that we're in a season like that right now. So if I was able to break even over the next 6 months, I'd be thrilled, because we're providing value for our clients. We're keeping the foot on the gas pedal of advertising spend. We're obviously trying to keep a really solid base of great top realtors, and sometimes that costs money. Coaching and training, advertising, signage, office space, you name it. Billboards, buses, social media, podcasts. You probably want to get paid next week, right? So these are all these things. They cost money, and so I would say that when the sales are flush and there's lots and lots of listings, there's active buyers in the marketplace, then the model is really productive and it makes sense. But when it's soft, sometimes it's just like, let's just try to break even. Let's just reinvest in the business. It's a long-term play here, and that's where we're at now. When it's, I would say, more of a balanced sort of cost ratio, if you would, I would say we're looking in real estate as a larger team to come away with sort of that 12 to 18% profit margin.
Okay, yeah.
And I've heard that that's pretty standard across the board. So sometimes the consumer, and I don't blame the consumer for this, but sometimes the consumer will say, well, you just made like $20,000 in 5 days. And that's true from their perspective, because what they care about is what they have to pay. But the truth is behind the scenes, we're find that consumer or to get that meeting at that house. There was a lot invested in coaching and training and strategy and marketing dollars and office space, etc. And I'm not crying the blues, because real estate's obviously a great industry for profits, and it's been a very good run since I've got into real estate. But yeah, the margins are nowhere near what I think people would hope, like realtors would hope they are. That's just not the case.
And then what key advice would you give to someone in terms of managing business expenses? Because I know there's a lot of just general expenses, as you mentioned, and also what tips would you give them in terms of deciding to go with either the premium offer or the more affordable offer?
And you're talking about marketing dollars, or when you say premium offer, or?
Well, I'm more talking about just the different services involved in real estate. So marketing, just in general, setup, staging.
And you're talking about from the realtor perspective, should they go in kind of 100-mile-an-hour direction? Should they go in okay. I would say that if you're a brand new realtor, it's going to differ from if you're a tenured realtor. It's going to differ if you're an independent realtor versus a team. I guess I'll just speak from my standpoint, which would be a team sort of perspective. I think if you're going to be competitive in this landscape, you have to be willing to spend big dollars. And I don't believe in doing things half measure. So I, often say if a house needs to be advertised and you have to spend $10,000 and the commission check potentially is $20,000, you have to be willing to spend that money sometimes, whether that's staging costs or flyers to go out about that property. There's also, too, to be fair to the answer, there's always multiple benefits to the advertising dollar. So there's a benefit to the client, of course, if you're promoting their home, but the benefit to the team is you're promoting a beautiful house that is going to gain more clients, more buyers, more attention, which we can then use towards lead generation and future sales. So it's not just a sort of a piecemeal. I guess I'm giving you a piecemeal answer, but I don't think there's a one style is the only way to go, or one shoe fits all. But in general, I believe in big, bold advertising spend, and I would say that the other spends that would kind of come into our radar would be operation expenses. So staffing, office space, coaching and training. Those are big sort of dollar tickets. And I try to be heavy on the advertising and sort of a little bit more lean on the operations side. And I think both, if you can get the right size, it's great to have operations that, right now we have 5 staff. That's a really nice number. But if you can get to 5, 6, staff that are supporting the machine, and then you've got a massive advertising budget which support your clients and their selling, or their sales rather, the selling of their home, I think that's probably ideal.
And then you talked briefly on some of the financial struggles just for realtors in general. What would you say are just some common financial pitfalls that new realtors maybe fall into, and what advice would you give to kind of help mitigate that and manage it?
Yeah, I think a lot of new realtors have a foot in 2 canoes. So, they've got a part-time job, they're trying to do real estate. I mean, maybe it seems wise, I suppose, before you know if you're going to be successful in real estate. But I would also suggest that before you really put in 100% effort and a full-time effort, you're probably not going to see the fruit. And you're not going to see how great you could have gotten to be. And so I think that there's a season where you give yourself, 6 months to 1 year runway, where you just go to the client, right? I think a part-time agent is not, just my opinion, I could be wrong on this, but I don't feel like a part-time agent is able to service their client with the same capacity that a full-time agent would be. I also think that coming into the business without the attachment of a mentor or value in a team is probably a disservice to the client. And that's actually my answer. My answer is think about real estate from the client's perspective. What does the client want to have done? What is in the best interest of the client? And if you go in that direction, you'll always win, because you're making a decision as if you were, which we are, servicing the client, right? So what's best for a buyer right now? What's the best thing you can do for a seller? And if you go in that direction, maybe it costs you a little bit more money in the short term, but in the long term, you've now got a great client who's going to give you a great review, who's going to refer you out, So it's a great investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And keeping on kind of the subject of financials, in terms of like setting a home for selling, what would be the most cost-effective home upgrades that you would suggest for selling?
Yeah, so to a client like who's a homeowner, I think that depends on their budget. The cheapest thing you can always do is paint.
Yeah.
Actually, I would even say even a step before that is have that home spotless. So for us, there's services that we offer within our commission structure. Those two being services that and those are the easiest ways of getting a great return. Like you'd be surprised. Think about a vehicle. I think a vehicle is a really easy analogy. So if you want to sell a standard vehicle, Honda Civic, and it's got McDonald's wrappers on the floor, and the steering wheel is kind of sticky. It needs a vacuum. It's just gone through a mud puddle. Like, are you going to get the same dollar for that Honda Civic than if it was just detailed? If you cleaned it up, vacuumed it, Windexed the windows, cleaned off that layer of dust. You guys know who you are. That layer of dust on that. Yeah. So the layer of dust on the dashboard. I would say that you're going to get every day of the week, you're going to get more money for that vehicle. It's very similar in the car or in the house, except for the house is worth, maybe a $50,000 premium to the house that wasn't, cleaned up and freshly painted. And right now, like you can paint a room. I like to benchmark, and these are prices fluctuate with sort of your service providers, but I would say $500, $600 a room, $400 a room if you find a really affordable painter. So for $400 to spruce up a room with fresh paint, that's worth it. And I would spend that money every day of the week. I just want to answer on a larger investment. The second best thing, in my opinion, you can do is open up the layout between, if you have a closed center hall plan, let's say, but open up that layout between the kitchen and the great room. If there is a wall there, having some, mostly you see them in 60-year-old bungalows. There's kind of that wall dividing the living room from the kitchen. If you can get a structural engineer to come in, stamp it, do your drawings, submit it to the city, and remove that wall, we can usually get that done for $5,000, let's say. If that's done, your return is huge. I would say that you're going to get at least a 5x return on that. It opens up the whole space. So those would be the two quick fixes.
Yeah. Do you ever think that those like closed space like style would ever come back?
I actually think it is coming back. For certain demographics.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll tell you where I don't think it's coming back. I don't think it's coming back in the first-time home buyers or the condo market, because those spaces are getting smaller.
Yeah.
So that, if you're looking for a condo right now, back when I was first time kind of home buyer stage, the condos would have been on average 1,200 square feet. I mean, you go into the major city centers right now, you might find a condo that's 500 square feet, 450 square feet. So you can't close those in. Then I would also say that, as you have children, you get, you're growing in your family sort of dynamics, etc., you'll realize that like having separation from kids and the noise that they can create, although I love children. Like I truly do. Like I have such a affection for kids, but if you have a wall, a playroom with a wall and a door, like parents appreciate that. So that wide open space is probably more attractive to the younger demographics as you get on in age. I think you appreciate what those walls were intending to do originally, which was to block sound. Another example would be second floor to main floor. That big vaulted entranceway when you come into a home looks amazing. There's usually a skylight above or a beautiful chandelier. But when you want to create noise separation from that first floor to the second floor, like it's actually nice to have just a sort of a finished space that's leveled out. So teach their own, but I would say that the open layout kitchen to great room, that's not going anywhere. But yeah, you'll find second, third, fourth time home buyers, they get more specific and more, they choose more what fits their style. And so we'll see it sort of fracture out very specifically based on that buyer's needs.
Absolutely. And even just having, like, if you have that open space, there's some room to change, right? Like you always have that option too, right?
I mean, like oftentimes when you show a house that basically looks like a commercial building, it's a rectangle and it's wide open, especially if it has really high ceilings. The the consumer market loves that space because they just, to your point,
just blank
they're
canvas.
Like, we can do whatever we want. We can keep it big, beautiful, and wide open, or we can put in a wall. So it gives them choice.
Yeah, for sure. And then in terms of staging, I think we've talked about staging a bit before and kind of went into that a bit with painting and whatnot. But do you think it's like essential to stage each room in your home, or do you think it's more important to kind of prioritize maybe like the main living room or
Yeah,
mesh and everything?
this is a very valid question because I think there is a right answer here. The
Okay.
right answer is who's buying the home. Generally,
Okay.
the person buying the home is concerned with the space that they are actually going to occupy.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if it is a four-bedroom family home, which is a fairly standard home, right, that house metric would take up a big percentage of the market.
Yep.
Four-bedroom family home.
Yep.
The person that's buying that home are generally the parents or a parent. Um, they're not usually looking for a four-bedroom home if they're empty nesters, right? So this is usually a family. And so where do they live? Well, they live in their master bedroom or the primary bedroom, I guess we're calling it, and they live in the kitchen and the great room. Uh, those are the spaces that are the most important spaces, and those are the spaces that need to be staged, in my
Okay.
opinion. If the kids' bedrooms are a little bit smaller, if the kids' bathroom's outdated, not as important because, again, that parent that's actually spending the money, they're not as concerned about Johnny's room size as they
Mm-hmm.
are what's my room size going to be? What's the layout of my room going to be? How is my entertaining going to be when I have my friends over? When Johnny has his buddies over, we're going to put them in the basement and they can bang around with their hockey sticks and break stuff down there, or maybe we don't even need a finished floor because they want to rollerblade in the winter. You see what I mean? It's an afterthought to them. So I would say first and foremost, master bedroom, primary bedroom, and kitchen great room. Those are the main areas.
Mm-hmm. And then moving to more of some separate services for kind of prepping a home, kind of dating back to like your early when you first started. How has like drone and iGuide tours and just the virtual landscape changed the selling process over the years?
Yeah, I think it's been a benefit to everybody involved so far. I don't see a huge downside. Some of the things you're touching on. So, for example, drone photography, even Google Maps, satellite images, that helps the consumer make decisions before having to drive out and see the property.
Yep.
So, they might see a school in the backyard and decide, you know what, I don't even really want to purchase because I don't want that recess noise in my backyard.
Yep.
And they found that out through drone photography. Whereas if we just had a picture of the backyard, never would have known.
Yeah.
When it comes to, I would say, iGuide photography, I mean, that for those that don't know, iGuide is a software that offers kind of that walk-through version of the house, and you
Mm-hmm.
can spin and turn and look up and
Yeah.
look down and 360 degrees in every direction. Again, that can help with someone figuring out like what's the space here. Would my dining room table even fit in that dining room? Because I need a dining room that's big enough to host 10 people. And if that's a no, again, you're saving them time and energy from having to go and look at the property. So I think that it's changed the business in a great way. From my perspective, I don't see any downsides.
Yeah.
And I'm actually looking forward to seeing what more software rolls out and the benefits to the consumer. And this is always important to remember as a realtor, as a just a regular home seller or buyer. The industry is headed in a direction that is making things more convenient,
Mm-hmm.
more affordable, pressure on commissions. So everything's heading in the direction of the consumer, which is so good. Like that's when industries succeed when they're thinking about the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Industries fail when they're thinking about the salesperson or the realtor. Like what's best for the realtor in the real estate landscape? No, no, no. What's best for the consumer? How can the realtor assist? That's the right way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then what like small details can make a big impact during a home tour? So from the perspective of a seller, like what small details maybe like a
Cleanliness we talked about, but
yeah.
like that's the number one primary
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think that realtor little tricks and details that we look at would be like a scent like Satsuma,
Okay,
or
yeah, yeah.
or a lemony scent is definitely even sort of a, I don't know what my wife uses on the floors here, but it's like whatever that purple, is it Pine Sol?
Yeah,
I don't know, but anyways, it's a purple cleaner, but like it has this
yeah.
scent of like this place is spotless.
Yeah.
And sometimes I mean, literally,
It's like,
you can just mop up a 10-foot square area and it
yeah.
smells throughout the whole
Yeah.
home. Like this is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
The removal of any um, pets and or pet cages,
Mm.
that's helpful as well. Some people have allergies, other people
Yeah.
just maybe aren't pet owners, and it kind of just throws them off. Oftentimes you'll see like a big massive dog cage in the
Mm.
house,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately you start thinking like, I wonder where that big dog
Has
has
been.
damaged
Yeah.
the flooring.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at the hardwood for scratches and stuff like that. So like removing these items,
Mm-hmm.
crucial. Another thing that I think is, I don't see it done enough, but most basements have some type of a moisture kind of in the air.
Yep.
It's a basement. It's not as ventilated as the main floor or the second floor, and you'll often find dehumidifiers that
Yep.
are running during a showing. I don't mind if I'm buying a house that needs a dehumidifier in the basement, but you're drawing my attention to the fact that it is a moist sort of room and there's moisture in the air when that dehumidifier is running during the showing. So I would recommend like turn it off, put it in the garage. It's there. You can
Okay.
bring it
Yeah.
back out after the showing, but I don't think it's necessary to sort of have it in the open
Yep.
when someone's touring the home.
Okay. Interesting. And then kind of, I want to try something different here. I want to try and take you out of your bias. So my question is, as a realtor, if you were moving somewhere you have like zero local knowledge about, would you still use a realtor to assist you in purchasing a home,
No
or would
question.
you take it
Yeah,
upon yourself?
I can search my heart for the most honest answer. It's an unquestionable yes, 100%. Because the thing is I now more than ever see the value of a great realtor. And so, if my wife and I are on vacation and we love that area and we're thinking about real estate in that area, I am immediately contacting one of the bigger brands in the area. I see
Mm-hmm.
the value in that. And we are certainly engaged with a realtor, under contract with a realtor, and we are shopping just the way that I would suggest shopping here. And the reason we do that is because we see that that realtor's paycheck is made up, I'm not going to say tenfold, but it's certainly made up 2, 3 times the paycheck in the knowledge, in the expertise, in the negotiations that they may have. Oftentimes you'll find that that realtor has properties that are off market that you didn't otherwise know about. So I like more than ever, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, more than ever, do I see value in using a realtor? Yes, unequivocally.
And then what negotiation skills do realtors bring to the table? If you could just give like one small nugget.
Well, I think that our team is unique, and
Yeah.
I would say that we treat this as a business. We measure
Mm.
KPIs, key performance indicators. We look at metrics, and we also know the 4 negotiation points. And I, I'm going to say that we created these sort of strategies in coaching and training. And so, if you hear it from anywhere else, I'm humbly saying I believe that it came out of our team. But that's the 4 negotiation points in real estate.
Yep.
And when you know the 4 negotiation points in real estate, which are price, deposit, closing date conditions, then you know how to move the levers, because
Mm.
really all the negotiations surround those 4 levers. When one lever moves, the other lever moves. So, for example, you might want December 1st as your closing date. Well, I might be able to give you December 1st as your closing date, but I want an extra $10,000 in that offer. And knowing that when you have these levers to sort of maneuver the negotiations, that's going to help you in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Also, knowing just clauses. I think that a lot of people will come in, especially in this market, with a condition on sale of home. Well, what's the objection there? The objection is we don't want to own 2 houses, so we're going to come in with a condition on the sale of our house just to make sure we don't own 2 houses. Generally, that buyer is going to pay a lot more money because that's a really bad condition for the seller, if they even accept it. And so, how can you protect your buyer? How can you protect both parties without that condition? Well, you can put in what's called an extension clause. And again, I truly believe like this is something that we thought of and put into our offers a long time ago, where we would say that the buyer can extend the closing date by up to 60, 90 days at the buyer's sole option.
Mm-hmm.
And that eliminates the need for them to sell immediately. It gives them, let's say they had a 60-day closing date, and then we're giving them another 90 days extension if they need it. So that buyer now has 150 days to sell that house. And that's a long time. So like there's no issue of selling a home in 150 days. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You've protected the buyer, that like they're not going to own two houses because they're going to sell their house in 150 days, or they have, there's something very wrong, right?
Yeah.
If you don't sell that house in 150 days, that's almost half a year. There's something very wrong there. And you've protected the seller because the seller doesn't actually have to tie up the property on a maybe. Maybe the buyer buys your house if their house sells. So it brings the deal together. These are little things, but there's a lot of little things in negotiations in real estate. There's 500 of those little things, and I do believe that experienced realtors are able to sort of guide and lead you in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of the times people are very reluctant with realtors just because they're scared of that commission, right? That's often the question you get. So, what would be like the hidden costs of selling without a realtor that maybe would make that commission valuable and using the knowledge of a realtor?
Yeah, I think that I'll answer first of all, what are the hidden costs when using a realtor?
Okay.
Because there
Yeah.
are hidden costs
Yeah.
that are not talked about, and they're not hidden, but they're not spoken about like they should
Yeah.
be. So oftentimes people will see that commission rate,
Mm.
5% or whatever the rate is in their area,
Yeah.
without knowing the fact that there's actually HST in addition to that commission rate. So that's like a really important thing to tell a consumer. Is an additional 13% on the commissions that is out of pocket to the consumer,
Yeah.
to the seller most times, right? The seller is paying the commissions. So that's one of the hidden things I see that we don't talk about enough on our team. We just out front, right? Yes is yes, no is no. This is what the price is, and in addition to that, there's HST.
Yeah.
I would say hidden costs when you are selling on your own. Really, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, but the hidden costs are the price you sold for, because effectively you eliminate the realtor market. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to pay commissions and you want to eliminate realtors, well, you're looking for a market that doesn't have a realtor associated with that buyer. So that's a very small market compared to the market that has the buyers. So I think there is a misunderstanding around, I can get the same dollar no matter who I use. I can sell it myself. I could use Bob. I could use Scott. I could use Amy, whoever. I'm going to get the exact same dollar. And just to go back a podcast, but we like to show that video where there's the tattoo, and it was a tattoo of a lion,
Yep.
and that's the service industry.
Yep.
And so that tattoo is done very poorly. It looks like someone in grade school did it, and obviously didn't turn out well. Then you see a professional, and it's this gorgeous sleeve of this beautiful lion, and just looks like a 3D comes to life. Again, both said they would give you a tattoo of a lion. So to bring that analogy into real estate, both agents or both scenarios said, we'll sell your house and we'll get it done. But actually, did they do it properly? Did they each do the exact same job? And did they each get the same dollar amount on the home? No, like they didn't. But our industry agents, I think we do a poor job of explaining the value. And I think it's our fault. I don't think this is on the sellers. I think that the sellers are right to try and get a very aggressive commission rate. I think that it's the agents that need to do a better job of explaining, like, what is the actual value that we provide. And I am humbly saying that if let's say that agent's making a $20,000 commission check, that is a very, very easy amount to make up for your consumer in the negotiations of an average home right now of 1.1 million. $1.1 million. If you can't make up your 20 grand as a polished professional, great negotiator, marketing expert with strategy, something's very wrong. Like that 20 grand should be made up and then some, and a big sum.
Absolutely. And then how do realtors help sellers price their homes like competitively? How do they gauge that?
Yeah, for us, we use there's a three pricing strategy that we have. So first would be testing the market. Then we've got perceived value based on comparable sales, and then we have a list low bidding war strategy. And I think that as long as you have big marketing dollars and you know how to walk each strategy through, you're going to see success. And you have to use different strategies for different markets. I think that this market we're in right now is conducive to pricing sharply, or perhaps using a list low strategy with the right marketing. You can list low, but without the right marketing, you're not drumming up the amount of traffic that's needed.
Yeah.
So you have to be cautious, and I would say you have to trust somebody. oftentimes it's like I think um, I met with an accountant yesterday, or what was the day before, and I was saying to him, if I was going through a CRA audit, I would trust that you have the right way to guide me and
Mm-hmm.
walk me through a CRA audit. And the same should be true in every facet of business, specifically real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So in real estate, if you feel like you don't have a realtor that is willing to walk you through the path of a soft market, a hard market, a down market, or what have you, sort of that CRA audit of the real estate industry, then maybe that's not the right realtor. Now, teach their own, but I would say for us, we're like extremely confident in which strategy is needed for which property.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on price point, depends on location, market
Conditions. Yeah.
conditions. Thank you. And so, based on those three things, like we're going to be able to tell you pointedly and definitively, like
Mm-hmm.
this is what you should do.
Yeah.
And if you want to be successful and get top dollar, again, it's your home, so like they can make whatever choice they want, and they can choose a different path. But it's up to the realtor, I think, to guide them and direct them in the right way.
Mm-hmm. And what reassurance, because there's definitely a lot of trust if you're like, especially going with like a list low strategy. That's definitely very kind of scary for some of your sellers. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to list low. What reassurance would you give them?
Yeah, and I think that the short answer is it's a 4 or 5 day strategy when done correctly. So
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the sixth day,
Yeah.
you can change strategy if needed,
Yeah.
but the effectiveness is in the volume of traffic that you bring through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you'll see it oftentimes in commercial real estate. They'll list like a farm that's worth $60 million, or they'll list a commercial building that's worth $30 million. They'll list it for $1.
Yeah.
You'll see it very, very frequently. Why are they doing that? What they're doing is they're just trying to bring people in. They don't want to scare them off on a price.
Yeah.
So they're trying to bring qualified buyers in, get a feel for where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what kind of offer they throw out. So maybe they'll throw out an offer higher than we were going to list. Maybe they're going to
Yeah.
throw an offer lower, but at least we get to sort of feel out the market and see
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to do. And it can be a big miss if you don't know what you're doing. So, like, I'm
Mm.
suggesting, first off, trust someone with confidence, and pick a realtor who you know is a great realtor, who you believe in will kind of lead you in the right way. But I would also say that, yeah, it can be very effective when done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that I'll tell you why I think that it's scary for sellers is because they often think that, number one, it could be messy. So like it
Yeah.
looks messy from an optic standpoint. If you list low and then you don't sell and then you come back on the market higher, the whole thing looks messy. I would say that that's true. I mean, that's a true statement. It looks messy from the outside, but if it's a planned strategy, it shouldn't be relisted. It should sell.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it is relisted, it was planned to be relisted, and the strategy was to create noise and create a buzz. So there's effective ways of going about it, but I'll tell you what is very messy is having leadership that doesn't have a plan, doesn't have a strategy, and it's like, well, let's just try something. Like red alert. That's an issue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's when picking the right professional is crucial.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever gone through like every single pricing strategy with a client?
No, I would say that we choose a pricing strategy and we effectively sell. So, I mean, to no is the short answer. Like we're going back to the three pricing strategies. So
Yeah.
testing the market,
Yeah.
listing low, or pricing it at a comparable value based on comparable sales.
Yeah.
You're not going to use all three
Yeah.
strategies. If you did, like that's a
It's
big
what?
fail. And I'm thankful to say I can't think of a time
Yeah.
where we've done that,
Yeah.
because yeah, those three strategies should not be used like as one.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a definitive path from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's generally when you'll see a great review for a team or the realtor used,
Mm-hmm.
is they were told up front, like, this is how we're going to go about it, this is the strategy, this is exactly what we expect the results to be. And that client was walked through a nice gingerly sort of
Yeah.
stroll,
Yep.
and the end result was exactly as predicted. That's what we want the majority of, if not all, the experiences to be like. When they're not, I'm a big proponent of just being the first to say, like, we thought this would happen, it did not, and we apologize. I think that that's something that is so foundational to just being
Mm-hmm.
humble and being professional.
Yeah.
But you'll find, sometimes, I guess in all industries, just the willingness to admit that there was an expectation set that wasn't met. It just seems to be missing sometimes. So it's rare, but it still needs to be done. Apologies need to
Yeah.
be made,
Yeah.
and sometimes if there's ways of supporting that client through, perhaps a compensation model or some way of working with them on expectations that were not hit, I think it's super important.
Absolutely, and that can definitely help with your client relationship too. Just having that
Of
transparency
course,
and honesty,
absolutely.
and yeah, it's definitely super great. Yeah, I think I just have one more question, and it's more about like the paperwork process. So how does a realtor like streamline the paperwork process and help it be more efficient?
Yeah, I think the paperwork is fairly streamlined already.
Mm.
The What I like to do on our team is like we will have sort of standard offer um, paperwork.
Yep.
I just realized in this podcast that I use the quote hands quite
Yeah.
a bit. So I'm sure you're gonna make
Yeah.
short,
All
some
of it.
short making fun of my quote hands. But I would just say that the paperwork we would have like a standard offer paperwork
Yeah.
set where it's going to be standard conditions, standard clauses,
Hmm.
etc.
Hmm.
And then we'll also have, I would say, specific to Scott Benson team clauses and conditions that we like to add in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that would be for specific types of property, or for example, if there's HST in addition to versus HST included in, or if it's a rural property versus city and sewer, or city and sewer, water and sewer
Yeah.
versus septic and well. We'll have different clauses for that, but having sort of pre-printed standard paperwork
Hmm.
ready to go is definitely a good way to prepare. And
Yeah.
also too, like there's broker of records are there
Yeah.
for compliance, and so I would say using them to overlook and look through your paperwork from a compliance standpoint, very important. We bounce a lot of our paperwork off of our lawyers, so before we submit things, we'll send it through to our lawyer, and they'll just vet it for us. If there's something that's really unusual, vendor take back mortgage is a good example of things that don't come up very often. That'll go through a lawyer. You can always put in a 48-hour conditional on lawyer review,
Mm.
which is helpful. So lots of ways of protecting the paperwork, but
Hmm.
that's the shortest answer I can give you.
Well, awesome. That's all I have for today. Thanks again, Scott. It was
Yeah,
really
Brad,
awesome and insightful.
appreciate it.
And yeah, that is all from Beyond the Block.